auto-do. And this dance party, which happened to be at a minister's retreat, was pretty interesting. I was there dancing with my closest minister friends who happened to be about my age. And then the next song comes on, so I feel like it's time to take a break, get some water, rest my legs, the deal. And then another song later comes on that I want to dance to, and I go back to the dance floor, and I don't want to miss out rocking out to Miley Cyrus's Party in the USA, coming back and forth. This happens a few more times. A song comes on that I don't know, or don't like, or don't really know how to dance to, so I leave the floor, and a whole bunch of songs that I've never heard play in a row. And I notice a whole bunch of my colleagues who are 15 or 20 years older than me are dancing, rocking out, having a fantastic time. And I'm sitting off to the side with, again, some of my closer friends who are a little closer to my age. Many of us went to seminary together. And I start to notice this pattern of mass exodus, and an onslaught back on to the dance floor every time a song comes on from a different era. And I realize we're all having this dance party, people as young as 24, 25, and as old as their 70s or 80s. We're all having this dance party together, but none of the generations are dancing together. And I find myself feeling a little bad about this, but I'll also confess, I have no idea how to dance to some of the songs I just made you dance to. Seriously? Smells Like Teen Spirit? Does that have words? How are you supposed to dance to that? Nathan, I'm looking at you. Like this, okay. Well, you should have been at the dance party. I feel awkward and stiff dancing to that music, more so than I usually do. So, in preparing for this morning's Generations dance, I did a little bit of crowdsourcing, which is such a millennial thing to do, am I right? And I picked songs and just prayed that you all would know how to dance to them, because I didn't. So I'll confess that at this minister's dance party where the Gen Xers were in the heavy majority, my friends and I got a little irritated that they were playing so much music from before we were even born that we didn't know how to dance to. And I eventually went up to the DJ and requested a song that I would finally know how to dance to. And that may have actually been when Miley Cyrus came on, but we'll leave that to the side. So there we were, all in one community, trying to dance to each other's songs, or at least generously tolerating taking turns with the dance floor. And it strikes me that that's not unlike church sometimes, listening to each other's song while somebody else dances, and finally going up to the DJ and saying, "Hey, could you play my song now?" Which I will add may or may not have been the best thing to do in that moment. But I like to think that at least I did it politely. In thinking about what to say about cross-generational connections and communities, I went through a few dozen stories about multi-generational community that I'm actually not going to tell you today. Because they were just saccharine and sweet and not quite real enough to my own experience. I called my mom, who has a better chronicled memory of my church years growing up, and at least for the details, and I asked her, "Mom, did I ever have any really sweet relationships with elders in the church like Emma did?" My mom's not a sugarcoater, and she was like, "Nope." Because I think the truth is this: the centrifuge of our subconscious and the bias of segregation can spin us back into like groups, whether we're talking about age or race or gender. Did you know that the average American is as segregated by age in this country and in our communities at the same rates as whites are segregated from Latinos? So why wouldn't we revert back to these habits that we learn in the larger society at church? These cultural biases, the centrifugal forces of segregation. But we say that church is the place we come to practice being the people we want to be. So we consciously try to break these habits. We sign up to be mystery friends. We get paired with people of different ages for Art in Bloom, which is in June. We say yes enthusiastically when we're asked to be mentors for our coming of age program. We teach religious education. And because church is one of the last places in society, beyond the extended family, where people of all generations hopefully come together for a greater purpose. Age segregation is a relatively recent phenomenon, largely stemming from the industrialization era. fueled by the rise of the nuclear family, in particular in regards to housing, and so intensely segregated in our schooling. It is now so intense that the majority of Americans are able to go about their daily lives without interacting with anyone with more of a 10-year age spread. And if we're under 22, the gap is likely to be 1 or 2 years. And I actually think there's value in being with people of similar ages and stages, to be able to explore and make meaning with people going through similar developmental or life stages as you, to be able to connect with peers. Whether that's the senior youth group or our elders group or our moms group, to expect that a kindergarten spirit play participant and a senior youth group member and a member of the circle of elders has the same needs in terms of religious or human development would not be fair to either group and wouldn't meet their needs. But we lose something important when we are only around our age peers. One of the things I most missed when I went to college was interacting with people of different ages than me. In high school, I did a lot of babysitting for this mom's group, mostly my mom's friends, slightly younger than her, all from our church. And these women I had grown up around, they were like aunts to me, mentoring me, giving me rides, asking me annoying but affectionate questions about college or my friendships or school. And I, in turn, building a strong relationship with their kids, who I babysat, younger people who also mentored me as much as their parents did. Sometimes I would hang out with these women after they came back. I had put their kids to bed, and we would have a cup of tea, talk about our lives. I got advice and support and friendship over many years and many cups of tea. I valued being able to turn to someone who had a little bit more perspective than my peers might have had, but not so much perspective as my parents might have had. And I missed that when I went to college. Their kids drew me pictures that I put on my dorm room walls. My church gave me those relationships growing up. Research shows that for people at all life stages and all generations, meaningful relationships with people much older or much younger create significant benefits to our well-being. It disrupts prejudice, creates a greater sense of shared community and understanding of one another's needs, and gives an opportunity to see the world through different lenses. Because let us not forget that when we say talk about the many generations in this room, as we saw in our dance, we say multi-generational, or I say multi-generational, because there are more than two, implying between two different generations. But when we got up and danced, there were 5 generations in this room that I named, 6 really, and some theories would even say that in this room right now we have 7. Even when children and youth are at their religious education classes, they only represent 1 or 2 generations. When we consider adults, those adults can take up to 4. So much of what defines a generation is not only what life stage someone is in, but also the cultural forces that have shaped perspectives, experiences, and opportunities. I was in 8th grade when September 11th happened, a formative time, being about 13, for understanding international politics, the use of political rhetoric, religious bias. I got my first cell phone when I went to college, and in my early 20s, I had conversations with preteens about racism, whose primary association with the word racism was anti-Muslim and anti-Arab ideas, rather than the black-white associations I had grown up with. And those same preteens who asked me how on earth I lived without a phone. Possibly technically even in the same generation as me. But our daily lives, routines around communication, ideas about race and racism, in those 8 or 10 years had already changed so much been changed by the times that we were born into. And this is true for each of us beyond a 10-year spread. Whether we were born when families didn't have household telephones or TVs, or we remember getting our first microwave, or whether we remember climbing under desks in school during the Cold War era, or remember Kennedy's assassination, or September 11th, or were drafted for war or signed up willingly as our duty or protested it. How we prefer to communicate, how we think about technology, what we understand about the role of government, about wars and race relations, all mediated by the formative experiences and cultural touchstones of the larger world. The gift and challenge then in religious community and in faith formation is finding opportunities for balancing both, time with our age and stage peers, and building relationships across generations. Because if church is one of the last places of cross-generational connections, then of course we need to be extra intentional about building and choosing those connections, since they won't happen organically unless we water them and give them sunlight. We know that our faith calls us to build beloved community, including toddlers, elders, everyone in between. And it requires us to build that spiritual muscle of patience and generosity when worship isn't quite as quiet as we might like, or we're asked to slow down and walk during coffee hour because someone's balance isn't quite what it used to be, or if we are singing music that we don't love, because we know that sameness is easy, but difference is where the growth happens. And our task is nothing less than growing souls, for we know it to be a beautiful and holy thing. Growing souls young and old, millennial and baby boomer, and whoever comes next. May it be so, and amen.